Sweet melody?
Sweet melody.
That's where we should land.
We should go right there, right now. That's the place that we need to go to.
We were unidentified objects. Now we will be the identified objects.
Sweet melody.
You'll be rejected a million times. Everybody will have their opinion. If I get rejected one more time, I might just jump out that window right there. But
UFO. You let it go. You a friend. You come again. Unidentified objects, more Project Slayer. Red pandas in the Himalayas. From the throne to the court, I can lay.
All right, so here is our official opening. Hey, Archpalatine, thank you so much for joining us on No Competition. I'm so excited to have you here. You are gorgeous / handsome as always. How are you feeling? How are you feeling today?
oh, I am so happy to be here too with you, Danny Ocean. Oh my goodness, my homegirl D.O. I feel so good today. And as I was setting up my camera, I know you'd appreciate this. I don't know if this will ever be a thing, but in a show, by the end, I want to be naked.
Ooh.
Hey, there's a thing behind that. No, I was sitting here and I put on some rings and some things, and I'm like, oh, I'm taking that off. And I'm taking that off, like, this is on my nerves. So I'm figuring the more fabulous you get, at the end of your show, the more you want to be naked. Like, all right, take this off.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's funny. I started, you remember like the early days playing at Chris's Jazz Cafe, and I would have heels. I mean, I'd be playing in the whole nine, right? And I'm thinking about all these other male performers. Not only are they not playing in heels, but the level of glam when you're like a female guitar player just like hitting the scene, like, ugh. And by then, like now I'm almost going barefoot when I'm on stage. I want to just, as like you said, like the least amount of stuff I can have, the better. Totally. You're the complete opposite as a performer. I mean, tell us a little bit about just your whole, your persona as Archpalatine, because I know you as Derek Anthony Wilson. The world now knows you as Archpalatine. So just give us a little bit about that persona.
You make me think about that, and I never really sat back and thought about the journey as one package, but it started out like, oh, I want to have original clothes for this show. So I would go to City Blue or somewhere where they have like cool fashion forward clothes and buy things. Eventually I started realizing my pockets are getting flatter and flatter, and I'm like, all right, I need to do something. So I started making outfits for shows to stand out and be special and feel special. Yeah. And it kind of just came out of nowhere. For instance, this shirt, I painted this shirt. And I needed it for a random show one day. And I was like, oh, let me just paint something. And I really painted it in like 20 minutes and was like, let me hurry up and go. Because that's where I am now. I'm like, I have to have something special on. I want to experience the experience myself.
Yeah, sure.
I want to go on stage and say, this is the experience that I want to give to other people. And this is the experience that I also want to have in my own journey. And it helps so much to feel special by having one-of-a-kind clothing and bedazzling things and lights and smokes and action.
Yes. My bass player, Rochelle, is all about the bedazzle. But hold on, give me just a little bit, because being a performance artist is way different than being a recording artist. And we're going to get a little bit to your songs in a second, but there must have been at some point in your development where you were realizing that, hold on, I just don't enjoy singing. I enjoy the art of performance. And like, what about, you're as a Black person in this world, right? That in and of itself is a thing. So like, how did you start like collecting yourself, getting yourself outside of the box and saying, okay, I'm just going to paint the shirt, or I'm just going to whatever, like, where did those early beginnings start from?
It was the first show I played where I made my first article of clothing that I wanted to be special was at the New Leaf Club. Angela Everwood was playing, and we were doing a show together.
Tell us about where the New Leaf Club is for all of our visitors who may be across the world.
So I guess that's in Rosemont, PA, which is on the main line outside of Philadelphia, maybe 15 minutes or so. There was this really nice club that was a dry campus. It celebrated people's sobriety, and they had a live performance space, which was famous for their open mic that was hosted on every Thursday by Adam Monaco. And that was a dope open mic. A lot of people who went to the Milk Boy where Danny and I met, where we met Danny.
The early days, and Milk Boy was in Ardmore, and now Milk Boy has their own kind of like empire in Philadelphia with their bars and restaurants. So it's definitely evolved.
And so we kind of evolved with it. We went from the Milk Boy to the New Leaf Club, where we started cultivating our friendships and our talents, performing with other people. And I played a show there with Angela Everwood one day, and I just wanted to make it special. And the idea just came in my head, paint a shirt to do something to make it special. So I flipped a blue shirt that I had over, and painted like a giant elephant on it with its trunk going up.
Wow.
And it just became a thing. I got such good compliments on it. I felt so good.
Yeah.
It just kept evolving, and now like nothing is out of bounds. So you can give me a whole raggedy shirt.
Do you ever get any shade, like Derek, for like being so fabulous? Like, because that in and of itself is a bold statement, you know? Like, just to be that self-expressed is a bold statement. Do you ever get any shade?
I think the shade is low key. I think it's like behind closed doors shade.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you don't say anything up front, then I don't care, you know? There was one time when somebody said something to me, but I just was like, it's my band. Why would I not be that way? They said, it's always about Palatine. And I'm like, yeah, it is, because it's my band.
That's right. That's right, because it's my band. So that is a great segue into UFO. Like, just tell us a little bit about that song, how it evolved, because that's a hybrid between Sweet Melody, right, and UFO from your EP that you dropped, Transition. Is it Transition Period?
Yeah. So there's 4 songs on this EP. Transition Period goes right into UFO. And in the beginning of UFO, there's a segment between like 2 alien robot creatures, and they're looking for something called Sweet Melody. And I'm singing something called Sweet Melody, which is why all of a sudden these aliens are attracted to this energy. And then we sing the song UFO. But the original part of the song was the song UFO. All of the aliens and the sweet melodies and everything came after it and just melded together in one track.
Yeah.
But the original part, Danny Newport, his brilliant production, he sent me that track that was these weird, like, you know, laser-esque sounds and sounds that I think a spaceship would sound like if it was landing, and all these crazy, like, flipping through the octaves, going down and going back up. And I was like, ooh, what is this? And he named the track Beyonce 1. And I was like, Danny, you want me to write a song for Beyonce? Is that what this is? And that's what originally I was like, okay, Beyonce likes something hard, you know, like play on words, something with a cool rhythm. And that was what my original my thought process was going into writing that song was, okay, write a song for Beyonce. You know, maybe one day she'll hear it and be like, well, I'm not going to use that song, but you can sing a little bit.
Right. Like, we all have those dreams of like, I'm gonna write this for somebody. But we had spoken before when you actually finished it. You said, no, that's not what actually Beyonce would sing. This is totally me, and you totally owned it. Yeah, that's amazing.
I had to own it for 2 reasons. One, from my humble abode where I know Beyonce isn't quite listening in yet. Please one day get me to that level. So I was like, all right, it's for me. And then the other thing is, it really was for me, because I was thinking of Lauryn Hill and how she does cool lyrical portions of her songs, and then we'll go into singing portions of her songs. And I was in a cappella groups growing up, so I always heard, the harmonies and the intricacies. And I wanted that song to have that kind of expression. I wanted that song to say, okay, it says, one part it says, music is what it's about, sweet melody, working it out. Don't forget it's a musician's game. Don't bring the same, bring your A game. To say, yo, step it up. Do everything you can do. In one track, play your guitar riff, harmonize with it, sing with it, and then change the rhythm up. Like, I just wanted to feel like it was a new space, an alien-esque landing.
It does. And it totally does. When I listened to that track, Sweet Melody, I was just like, he did it. And I had to have you on this show. Your song was the birth of this whole video cast. I was just like, why doesn't the world know about the musicians I know, And I think I was talking to another artist who's going to be on this show, Lily Annell, and we were talking about yes,
I
right?
love her.
She's great, right? And that's the thing, right? As artists who are kind of like on that mid-level, just looking to peak up, we're just trying to get over that hump so that the whole world knows about us. I thought to myself, like, we are not doing enough together to really push each other up to that next level. I remember distinctly when I was an adolescent, someone telling me about the idea of crabs in a barrel. And how, the more one crab tries to get out of the barrel, the more the other crabs latch onto it and bring it down. And from a racial identity, I've always heard that paired with other Black people. Like, yep, it's crabs in the barrel. Some Black person's trying to get up, another one tries to pull you down. And I was like, well, hold on. When do we actually change that narrative? And how do we change that narrative? And if that narrative exists for Black people, it probably exists in other spaces that feel competitive because of the level of oppression. And so when I thought about artists, I don't think of us necessarily as repressed. Actually, I think of us as the complete opposite. But the industry side of music can make us feel like we're all squeezing in line for a little tiny little piece of key lime pie, right? And what if all of us said, bump that pie. I don't want that pie. Like, let's actually create a new thing where all of us have not just a little tiny fraction, we all have like our own pie factories, and there's all these gorgeous pies being, pushed out. So No Competition kind of grew out of me listening to your album because knowing you at Milk Boy, and then you came into my project and sang background for me for a little while. I've always been a fan of your music, and it kind of felt like, remember that story about, who was it? Is it Roberta? Who was Luther Vandross singing backgrounds for? Was it Roberta?
I honestly forget who he sang backgrounds for. I remember seeing him on the Sesame Street thing.
Yes. I'm almost positive it was Roberta Flack. He was singing backgrounds for Roberta Flack. And Roberta was like, yo, you got to get out there. You got to just do you. Like, you have too much of a gorgeous sound to just solely be doing this, And that was the beginning of his solo career. And, of course, he got bites from Quincy Jones and writing for The Wiz and the original sound. And it just kind of evolved with all these other projects he was in. And I just always thought of you as a Luther, not just because you have that beautiful low tone, but it's just your presence. And then you mix that with like these influences of like David Bowie. And I feel like there's like this culmination that is like just something familiar, before I even knew your sound. I felt it, in your voice. So this album is so cool. So
you know how much I love Luther Vandross and David Bowie, Danny. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, to me, it's my ear. I hear so much of their influence for you.
You hear everything so accurately. Like, David Bowie was my favorite. The movie Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And that soundtrack was the soundtrack of my childhood.
Yes.
My
Yes.
sisters hated me because I would go in the room and I was the youngest child, and I would turn on Labyrinth and I get to watch whatever I wanted. So they absolutely were like always mad at me because I was like, I'm watching The Wiz, and I will watch it all day, or I'm watching Labyrinth and I'm watching it all day, or maybe even The Wizard of Oz, but woo.
You're like the little spoiled, almost like only child going on. That's awesome. Labyrinth is one of my favorite movies, and I think it's I have a love affair with Jim Henson and just his brilliance as a puppet. But then you mix that with the creativity of David Bowie. I mean, his sounds, his whole style is still unparalleled. You know, like you still have people trying to really get into the idea of his head, like how he even tried to create music. So when I heard you, I was like, oh, this guy is on that level. This totally on that level. So I want our fans to know just a little bit about what you believe some of the challenges are, and maybe some of the blessings are, of being an artist that's kind of like squarely in the middle and just needing that one tip to push you off into the world, truly knowing and hearing your voice. What are some of the challenges, and what are some of the blessings in it?
The biggest challenge for me was picking a way to express my genre. I heard so many times you have to pick rock, or you have to pick gospel, or you have to pick classical, or you had to pick pop, or whatever, R&B or soul. And I couldn't fit myself in a box. I would sit down at a piano and write a song, and it would be a pop song, or I would sit down and it would be a gospel song. And I couldn't, I wasn't saying, okay, thank you, Lord, for the song, but can next time you just give me all gospel songs? Like, that's not who he made me to be. Yeah. I love music. I sit down, whatever I write is the song. People say, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. Well, listen, if you play a little bit of pop and rock and then don't you got a highway? You don't have a lane. We ride on highways here. Yeah. And that was a big challenge coming into myself, and not feeling guilty and ashamed for not being the box that everybody was trying to put me in. I couldn't be that. I couldn't do that. And that was a big challenge, figuring out that now I called my sound histrionic cosmic soul, because histrionic with a Y? Histrionic cosmic soul, because histrionic is kind of like theatrical and of those arts of theatrics. Cosmic, because what lane am I staying in? I'm not staying in the one lane. And soul, because I feel like we all are connected to our music in a cellular way. If ever you do a collaboration with another artist or work on a project with them, it's almost like being in a relationship with them. You fall in love with them, you have that special connection, and your emotions are like for every single thing. And that's why I feel like the soul comes from in the music, the connection to the words, the connection to your fellow bandmates, the history you have behind everything. And that's just what I have to define my sound as. I can't say, oh yeah, I'm pop. I mean, I get it. I'm pop sometimes. Oh yeah, I'm rock. Yeah, because I got my guitar, like I have that in there, but you know exactly what I mean. You taught me how to run a band, and I looked at everything you would do. You're bringing moving parts. Okay, so this person can't make it today. I'm gonna have a cello today. This cellist can't make it today. I'm gonna have my flautist. This flautist can't make it today. Okay, check this out. I have a horn section. Oh, I have this keyboardist. Okay, you can't make a keyboardist. I was like, hold on, how many keyboardists did he have? And then you're like, oh, this is my keyboardist, and that's my keyboardist, and that's my keyboardist. We were in working while playing studios, and I was like, what?
Yeah, some might also say that I bit off a little bit more than I could chew too, but I to think to that point, I just couldn't choose. There were so many different styles and sounds I liked, and every keyboardist, for better or for worse, has a sound. They're moved by a particular kind of I'll put it this way: the way music filters through them, even if your style changes, you have a particular way of understanding sound, And I don't know if you've noticed that for you as a musician, but it doesn't matter how different my next album is.
Mhm.
It's the common denominator is me and how I hear music, right? And so
Yeah.
someone who was like my study, right, like as me as a performer would say, yeah, but it's still Danny, right? Like, because there's a way in which like Norah Jones can make a metal album. It doesn't matter if she made a hardcore metal album. There's still a way that Norah Jones hears music. So like she articulates music in a particular kind of way, even if she's like, ah, you know. So all this is to say, I mean, without like, you know, I'm actually kind of enamored right now thinking about Norah Jones in like a leather metal outfit, but that's neither here nor there. But what I mean to say is, I think for you, like how I've heard your sound evolve over the years, it's still Derek. It's still, whether or not you're Derek Anthony or Archpalatine, like I just keep hearing your sound getting more and more refined. It doesn't matter how it comes out, you know, working with Danny, like it just continues to blossom. And I think you're more confident in your delivery too. And this particular album, I mean, tell me a little bit about COVID and how, I mean, because transition period, I'm guessing really just kind of speaks to the heart of why you wrote the album.
It has a lot to do with it. And it was so relevant. Danny Newport and I had been writing this album since actually 2017. We wrote Way with Words first, but sat on it for like a good 6 months or something like that. We were just having so much fun. We were surprised that we could create music like this. Nice. We were seeing each other every week at the open mic and hanging out in the studio. Nice. And we were, you know, we took our time. Then in the end of 2018, when I had to change my name from Palatine to Archpalatine.
Hold on, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what changed?
So I was Palatine, and I had known about a Palatine in France, and those were the only two Palatine bands that I could see online anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I went ahead and got the trademark for the name for commerce and CD sales from the United States Library of Congress, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I'm driving in Ardmore and I see on the marquee of a club, Palatine. And I'm like, I'm not playing there. What's going on? Mm-hmm. This old band from the 90s who have no online presence, who love music or whatever, but their branding is so different from our branding. And their hobbyists had what we call a common law trademark because we're both in southeastern Pennsylvania to the name, and they didn't want to change their name or anything like that. So allegedly I had to change my name. So I just, instead of fighting these old dudes with the hobbyists who had bad branding, I instead changed my name to Archpalatine as one word. As
the arch rival with Palatine?
As like the archbishop to the bishops.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yo, you talk about creative license. I love it. I love that.
Thank you.
Am Palatine over here.
Yes. I had my friend Justin Carrots came up with it. Honestly, I can't take all the credit. We were brainstorming for weeks. I had some weird names coming up. And then one day, Justin Carrots, who has a band called Kennel Club, and I got to shout him out because he's such a good dude, said, what about Archpalatine? Wow. And I think I just fell out on the ground, like right then and there it was done. Like, yes, that's it. I knew it was it.
That's amazing. I did not know that story. That's great. That's great. And wow, I mean, even just in that, your perseverance, you know, I keep hearing that kind of, I'm just going to stick with it. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to keep doing it. So tell us a little bit about your creative process. Like, what does a creative day look like for Archpalatine?
It starts off mostly at the piano, unless a melody comes to me randomly. So here's a good way I can explain it. On the album Amalgam, there's a song on there called Baby You're No Good that one of my best friends in the world, Raina, sang. She goes by Redley. And I had written it making pancakes one day, and I was just flipping some pancakes. Baby, you're no good. You know, baby, you're no good.
Because everybody puts pancakes singing that way.
And I think I had to like leave my pancakes on the stove so I could run to the piano and try to figure out how to like get some kind of groove behind it.
Yes.
That evolved to me finishing my pancakes, sitting down, figuring out, you know, the piano part, boom, ba do da do da dum, baby you're no good, boom, da do da do da dum, you know, to go right under it, and then orchestrating how a female, you know, the lyrics to it, pack your things, get out my house, your dog, your clothes, your ring, get out. I don't want no more of you. Don't want to be here no more. And you thought I was a fool. I know the house where you went to, where your car was keyed. Yeah, it was me. So, and I just was, you know, you go into the mindset of who you're writing for or what that situation would entail. I wasn't married. I'm not with anybody. I wasn't breaking up with anybody, but I had to embody that. So that's part of my writing process. Like, I'll sit down and I'll say, what would my best friend in love say at that moment to her wife?
Yeah.
What would she say, you know, if she was dying? And I try to write the lyric, and if I should die, know that I always loved you. That kind of thing, like just take it all the way down and figure out what each person involved. Because a lot of the theatrics that come to my music are like, okay, there's a person standing on that side of the room, and what are they talking about? What's their journey? Okay, so in Turbulence, that person is there and they love ice cream. Apom, my background singer / co-singer in Archpalatine, he loves ice cream more than anything. And I was sitting there like, okay, so if this song is about the band, let me write something that I think Apom would do. Sometimes in the morn, I want nothing more, ice cream, which doubles as like also ice cream.
Yes. I love that. So your songwriting process, you are a storyteller.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I haven't quite mastered that storytelling thing. There is a level of storytelling that I want to get to, that I see artists like Nas and Biggie and other artists who just have mastered that storytelling thing. I want to do that. I want to get there. In the meantime, mine is kind of like the goofy storytelling. That's like kind of jovial.
Not at all, though. I mean, I think the goof thing that you're referring to is just how much fun you can have with these stories, right? Like, Nas is so serious. He's got one mic, right? But like, there's also like this, you're never going to be that, Derek, because you're so lighthearted, right? So that like energy of playing with a story, or even playing the different voices inside that story. I mean, I just hear that in your music, because you don't really hold on to one particular identity in any of your songs that I've ever heard, except if it's just you and the piano. I think there's been a few songs that I've heard you, and it's just, you can just hear your classical training in it. It's just so rich and wonderful and full, and it brings you back to the church, you know? But your studio stuff just has so much, just eclecticness, right? So I this is something that I wanted to start in this show, right? And I'm going to try to see if I can get most of my artists to do it, right? I'm going to give you a line. I want you to think about that line. And then from the way you hear music, I want you to sing that line the way you hear it. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
I'm up for this challenge. This is awesome.
You're going to do it 3 times. You're going to sing this line 3 times. You can do it whatever creative style you want to. All right?
Okay. All right. I'm ready. Woo.
Okay. No competition is the only groove.
No competition is the only groove?
Yep, that's the line. You can sing it however you want it. You're going to do it 3 times.
I feel like it requires multiple times. So like, no competition is the only groove. 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 No competition is the only groove.
Nice. Go ahead. Go ahead, Archpalatine. Yes. And this is what musicianship means, right? Like right off the top, this is totally live. You guys are hearing it straight off, no prompts, no nothing. This right there is Archpalatine in action, you know, and I love it. So if you have not heard Archpalatine's work, you just got a teaser here of who this guy is in the world. I have a question for you. Who should we be listening to? Somebody who you know whose sound has no competition, because we all know you have a sound that has no competition. Who should we be listening for?
Ooh, I love that question. Yes, I want to put on my friend Leah Menaker. She just released an album entitled I Am Kairos. Kyr, like the Greek O with a slash through it, O. S.
Yeah.
And I finally had a chance to sit down and listen to it. So after we initially talked and you explained to me, please listen to an artist that you've been meaning to really dig into.
Yes.
And when I heard her album, it had so many cool layers. And I think she did a great job. I know she produced it herself. She's always been one of those artists who captivate her crowds. She started off when I first met her doing a lot of looping and layering of her, like tapping on this or making some weird sound into a microphone and then made a choral arrangement from it.
Yes.
And her sound has evolved, and now it includes a lot of modernized soundscapes.
Nice.
And she created this EP called I Am Kairos. The first track is My Shot. All My Life. That song is my song.
Nice,
I love it.
nice. I've had a chance to listen to it a little bit, and I'm so excited we might be getting her on this show. So that's an amazing teaser. I have one last thing for you. Is this EP turning into an album?
No, this EP is a one-off.
It's a one-off. Okay.
It's a one-off, but there are some special things coming up, and I'm so glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Where I think this is a good time to say that UFO is going to be a single release even after the EP was released.
Nice.
Also, I have some friends making remixes to other songs on the album, and they're going to be released soon as well.
Nice.
So I can't wait to share all this. And there's a special event coming up. I'm going to need everyone's help, and I will be blasting it out on my social media over the next couple of days. So please follow me at Archpalatine. That's ARCHPALATINE, one word, on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you check out your social media, even TikTok. I'm barely on there, but I have to get better with that. My nieces and nephews run that thing right now. But I'll get on there a little bit more, but just follow me on these social medias because I'm going to need your help with something that's so important, and it's going to be a blast, and I just need everyone there. I'm so excited about it, and I thank you so much, Danny, for already being such a big part of my life and helping me through so many tough times. We've had some powwows and some countless hours of conversation in cars and bars and Mars. And we will have plenty more, but I thank you so much because honestly, I'm not just me. I'm me with everyone that I love and have been with in my life. Learning from Danny how to run a band and, you know, do other great things musically. The scene, being not afraid. Danny was fearless. Danny was go-getter. She has all these qualities that somebody who is a superstar has. And I just love watching you do your thing, Danny. I mean, even people that we run with, like JP, his musical mind is so focused. Like, you can't tell him nothing, but he comes up with great results all the time. Paul. All these people, Eric, all these people from the bands, it's just, I feel like I'm a part of everybody.
Yes, and we are, because we've all had each other influence us in so many different ways, and and you've just been and continue to be such an influence. Leave our audience with one thing, because we're talking about music, but I think some of this can apply to any profession you have. How do you stay in this when you find there's rejection, or when you find that there's something frustrating, or just things aren't moving the way you want them to? What's kind of some words of wisdom you have for our people watching the show?
Take your time, be patient, and allow yourself to process the feelings and the emotions that you have based around the situation that you're going through at that time. Don't jump off the hinges. You'll be rejected a million times. Everybody will have their opinion. If I get rejected one more time, I might just jump out that window right there. But let me sit back.
My sweet melody, my sweet